here you go. And we'll talk about the North American life science and healthcare for the mainly focusing on the first half of 2022, some review and data. And these are some of the topics that we will go through. When we talk about who we are, so we'll skip that part. We'll talk about the leading industry indexes performance-wise, some M&A activities, and of course, venture capital activities in terms of investing, financing, markets in North America, and some of the hot topics and trends and opportunities. And also at the end, some outlook, the life after pandemic. So again, we talked about who we are earlier, so skip that. So let's talk about a bit about indexes. So let's take the US market for to start. NASDAQ IBB, which is a iShares biotech index from NASDAQ. So basically an ETF investing into biotech companies in NASDAQ. And you can see from last year's peak to this year's bottom in June time, it was down by 38%. And similarly, in the second one, the index from S&P Biotech Index is also down, but is even further for negative 64% from last year's peak to this year and bottom. But some of the positives that are coming out of it is because from the indexes in the second half of this year, we've already seen some rebound in that performance. The same, we took a look at the Canada index, the healthcare index in Canada. We followed a similar trend, even further down by close to 80% from its peak from last year. Again, the bottom out in around June time this year. And some of the possible reasons to explain this downturn by the overall investing markets being the COVID, of course, first pandemic, because in the beginning, early stage of the COVID, a lot of investment coming, sweating and pouring the money capital into the market. But really, the market doesn't really, the earnings because of the shortage of labor and materials in the healthcare sector that really didn't catch up to the expectation of the investors this year. So we're starting to see they are selling off in that sector. Of course, we see the interest rate, US rates hike in this year is particularly very drastic because of the inflation, and that also discouraged the overall market sentiments. And then we also possibility of seeing another recession coming in. So these are some of the possible reasons for why the market performs what it is. And let's talk about M&A activities. We also see a plummet of the M&A activities in the US market in life science. And you can see clearly from the chart, we see the 2020, you can see, of course, where the COVID, the early stage of COVID times in 2020, you see the lot of activities of M&A, of course. And last year, we see a really increase in terms of that activities. In the industry, we call it an outlier year, which is really the year of really abnormal things happening. You can see that from others of our data that I'm going to share with you later on is follow similar trends. So this year, actually, we see down from these transaction volume from the last year, but it's still actually going back to the pre-COVID time. So we're not too bad in that sense because last year was really the abnormal time. So even though we see the downtime of the M&A, the US market, we still see a lot of mega deals being done. So you can see the list of orders over $1 billion mega deals M&A is being done in the sector. All the big names are there, Pfizer, Bristol Myers, GlaxoSmithKline, GSK. So all the big major players you recognize. And so this is some of the, we call promising ideas because even though M&A activity is down, multi-billion-dollar deals are being done during this period of time. So let's talk about Canada, follow similar trends. We see the biggest deal being closed this year is Pfizer acquiring Trillium Therapeutics. The reason why Pfizer acquired this company is try to improve its oncology portfolio because Trillium has 2 advanced candidates in the hematological cancer. So we can see the immunotherapy is still very strong in favor, one of the significant sectors in the healthcare space. So after the M&A, we talk about in general, the biopharma medtech and how the IPO and venture capital all come into place. Again, from the chart, you can see 2021, that outlier year, really, really top, really increasing the activities. But we are first half of 2022 this year from the IPO and venture capital is already try to go back to pre-2020 levels. And in terms of the venture capital in Canada, we talk about US now in Canada, we see about Canadian dollars 622 million being invested, over 55 deals here. We see the sharp drop in that in terms of the millions dollars here again. But you can see the trend, the second chart you can see, this is really healthy. It's not really a drastic drop this year compared to the years before. It's only compared to last year. Again, last year was the special year, the outlier year. So you can see that we're not too bad in terms of that, the statistics. So we're still lagging in terms of venture capital investment in Canada, in North America in general, but market's still promising because we are, the life science investment overall is expected to exceed 2020 levels by the end of this year. So we're going back better than the year before. So just going to share some hot topics. We think cell therapy and gene therapy is still in favor. You can see this is some of the clinical trial data that we're sharing first half of this year. North America is still leading the way, but Asia is not too far off. They are both in decreasing compared to last year, but it's still very strong. And also in terms of the category of the clinical trials in the world, you can see cell therapy is right at the top, and cell-based immuno-oncology that I mentioned talk about, right? Because of the Trillium Therapeutics acquisition. This is coming second. So cell therapy and then gene therapy are still very significant in terms of the R&D activities around the world. And then we also see the increase in that cell gene tissue engineering therapeutic developers. So this is institutions, a number of groups that are doing this R&D in the world. Asia Pacific actually increased the most, plus 10% compared to last year. So meaning, so one of the country, of course, China being the fastest growing country in this part of the region, we're telling there's more activity, more clinical trial, more studies. It's open up news developing this particular cell therapy in this space. And so what are the opportunities? We see that going into the market space. Of course, COVID-19 is still hanging in the space. We're still milking it. We're still riding that wave of, because it's keep mutating. So that wave, we're still on it. And then we also see the monkeypox because a new disease coming out. So we see a growing vaccine, how companies benefiting from coming up with vaccines in this particular disease. And in conclusion, so the outlook, so what's the outlook for life after pandemic? We'll see more data being collected, how the patients react, and in terms of the benefits and risks in getting the new products out there. Machine learning, AI, combination of all of these are gonna make the breakthrough in the healthcare sector. We're relying on more and more on these new technology in the healthcare space. But secondly, most importantly also, is that new mRNA technology that encourage vaccines being executed for much faster pace than before. And there are companies that studying actually potentially vaccines for cancer. So there are some industry experts saying potentially by 2030, we'll see the first cancer vaccine being out in the market, being approved. So of course, these are all just speculation, but we're just telling you these can be a breakthrough in the years to come in the space. So thank you for listening to my sharing. And if you want to contact us for all the information, you can see that from here, follow us, or you can send us an email.